I was very shocked by the sudden appearance of this huge red monster. The maid planned for me to escape first, while she stayed behind to deal with this monster herself. When the monster was about to attack the maid, I activated my skills and fled with the maid. Due to the monster's fierce attack, the maid and I jumped directly into the lake. At this moment, I discovered a secret of the monster. However, the maid's life is also facing danger. With a loud noise, a very huge monster appeared in front of Moen. This monster's whole body turned red, as if it had been injected with blood. It has several hands on its body, and some hands wrap around its body. They constantly swayed on the monster's body, looking very terrifying. Moen lifted his head, nervously staring at the strange monster, and stuttered, "What exactly is this?" At this moment, the monster seemed to hear Moen's voice. It slowly lowered its head, and carefully looked at the person standing in front of it. "Oh, Mr. Moen." It was a bit surprised by Moen's appearance. It said to Moen in a cheerful tone, "I love you too." It gently waved its hand towards Moen. In no time, some red blood separated from its body and floated into the air. They condensed into several huge arrows. These red arrows flew rapidly towards the direction where Moen was located. Upon hearing the monster's words, Moen felt somewhat familiar. At this moment, he remembered that the monster spoke in the same tone as Aluka. He recognized the true identity of this monster as Aluka. He whispered, "Aluka." However, when he saw arrows shooting from all directions, he didn't have time to react. His body was immobilized due to nervousness. He watched helplessly as these blood arrows rushed towards him. Seeing Moen in danger, and didn't even have time to tend to her own injuries, she immediately ran to Moen's side and shouted at him, "Young master, take cover." She immediately picked up Moen and charged forward fiercely. At this moment, the blood arrow launched by Aluka had already landed at the position where they had just stood. In an instant, there was a loud explosion on the ground, emitting a dazzling red light. The soil blocks on the ground were blasted everywhere and raised huge amounts of dust. Perhaps the attack range of the blood arrow was too wide, and Anne's left leg was accidentally scratched by the energy of the blood arrow, and couldn't help but exclaim softly, "Hiss!" She tightly closed her eyes, suppressed the pain, and tried not to make too much noise. At this moment, Anne, who was holding Moen, fell to a piece of open space not far from where Aluka was standing. Due to inertia, they slid a long distance on the ground before coming to a stop. There was a long and deep mark left on the ground, and a lot of dust was raised around it. Moen doesn't seem to have suffered too much damage. He painfully closed his eyes tightly and reached out to gently touch his head and waist, checking if they were injured. He said unhappily, "Damn it, I knew there must be something wrong with Aluka. Ouch." However, and sitting next to him was not so lucky. In order to save Moen, her legs were injured. Her socks were stained with her blood. She spoke slowly, wanting to confirm Moen's situation. Young master. Moen turned his head to look at Anne, only to realize that Anne's situation seemed a bit serious. He shouted her name with a worried tone. Anne. Your feet. Moen carefully looked at Anne and found 2 obvious wounds on her leg. He reached out and hugged her back, slowly helping her up from the ground, and reached out one hand to support Moen's shoulder, while the other hand covered the wound on her leg. Her body trembled with pain. She comforted Moen. I'm fine. And gently pushed Moen away, and barely walked in front of him. She is currently unable to treat the injuries on her legs and body. For Moen's safety, she must first stop Aluka. She reached out and protected Moen behind her. She looked ahead with a serious expression and said to him, I'll stop her, young master. Run away quickly. Even though Anne was injured, she still wanted to stop Aluka, which surprised Moen. He looked at her with worried eyes and said, Anne, and turned her head slightly towards Moen and forced a smile. She knew what Moen was worried about now. She continued to speak to him. Don't worry. After I finish her off, I will catch up with you. At that time, I will also bring young master back to the Duke's mansion. She seemed to have made up her mind to solve the difficulties and dangers in front of them. Suddenly, a loud noise caught the attention of Moen and Anne. They looked ahead and found that Aluka had caught up with them. It destroyed many trees along the way and quickly moved towards their location. It waved its many arms and shouted at them. Master, Mr. Moen, I found you. Aluka has found them, so it needs to continue releasing its love. It bent slightly and gathered all her arms towards her chest. At this moment, its chest is gathering red energy. It said to Moen and Anne, Perfect timing. You can all accept my love together. Suddenly, Aluka opened all her hands. It fired a huge red shell from its chest. The red shell emitted a strong light and swallowed up all the nearby forests and land. It appears to be extremely powerful. It flew towards the location of Moen and Anne like a red meteor. Faced with such a critical situation, and couldn't think of any solution for a moment, she quickly activated the magic and used her magical energy to shape 2 daggers. She tightly held the dagger and planned to use the remaining energy to shape an iron shield that could temporarily withstand this intense attack. She gritted her teeth and looked forward with a serious gaze, as if she wanted to exert all her strength to fight against Aluka. Shadow Step, 200%. At this moment, Moen also activated his skill. The black-purple energy quickly enveloped his body. Full firepower, and seems to feel something. She slightly widened her eyes, feeling a bit surprised. Moen used his skills to quickly embrace Anne and take her away from the position where she had just stood. The red blood cannon quickly landed at the position where Anne had just stood and smashed a huge hole. The surrounding soil blocks and stones flew into the air. If Moen hadn't taken him away, and might have been killed by the shell. Aluka did not stop its attacks. It condensed its blood into one blood arrow after another and shot towards Moen. In order to facilitate their escape, Moen directly held Anne in his arms. He quickly dodged Aluka's blood arrow while constantly running forward, trying to find a place to temporarily hide. Behind him, all the blood arrows landed on the spot where he had just stood and made a loud noise. Seeing Moen working so hard to take her away from the attack, Anne felt puzzled. She believes that Moen is the one who should avoid getting hurt the most. However, he is now risking his life to escape with her in order to save her. She looked at him blankly and asked him, "Young master, why?" Moen hasn't looked at Anne yet. He explained to her, "You don't even know how to lie. If you could have taken her down, you would have done it already. Would you still let me run first?"